I'm Lynn with Psychic Focus at psychicfocus.blogspot.com, and today you're in for a treat. I have my good friend here, Aya, from ayarising.com, and she's here to talk about astrology with us. So I know a lot of you have concerns of what's going on and maybe just want a different perspective, so I thought I would bring Aya here to give us an astrological point of view. So Aya, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and
Sure.
what's going on?
Okay, great. Well, to give a little bit of my background, I've been an astrologer for about 12 years, and I've kind of dived into not just astrology, but a lot of esoteric studies such as, Kabbalah, numerology, tarot. So my experience of life has definitely been transformed, and astrology to me kind of gives us an alphabet as to the events that are happening during this time. And people can find me on my website at ayarising.com, and Aya is AYA. So please drop a line. I would love to hear from your viewers. So to begin, in the beginning of this year, March 2020, we had a unique configuration in the sign of Capricorn, and it involved three major planets that affect the times. It's a big deal. We had Saturn, which is constriction, which is structure, which is authority. We had Pluto, which is death and rebirth, transformation. Some would say manipulation and deception. Also, it's the shadow. It's the collective shadow. It's our greatest fears. And then to add to that party, we also had Jupiter. Jupiter just expands both of those energies of Saturn and Pluto. So right on the clock, in March of 2020, when the pandemic kind of came to the surface, it's when that clock chimed during that transit. And it was very intense. It doesn't matter your color, the age, your status. We are all going through this collectively as a human family. So that is kind of what happened earlier this year. What is coming, which is, I get a lot of questions, is that at the end of September and in the beginning of October, we're going to have that configuration, not exactly the same, but pretty close. Saturn and Pluto are going to become conjunct again in that same degree, around that same degree of Capricorn. Conjunction, what that means basically is that the planets are typically within 6 degrees of each other. So it's kind of like the energies intensify, and it cannot be ignored by us here on Earth. So during that period, people believe there could be a resurgence of the pandemic, the fear, the anxiety, the political scene as well, more restrictions, because Saturn represents authority, restriction, maybe martial law, perhaps. And then Pluto is picture kind of this guy with a flamethrower, just burning everything down, shaking the establishment, shaking our foundation, shaking our structures here as a country, as a world, actually. So what does that mean to the everyday person? Expect that the rest of the year is going to be intense, okay? Things are not going to ease down. And what I recommend for people is to, one, definitely ground yourself, meditate. I know it's very difficult with all of this going on, but it's really important to embrace the silence and go within. Two is stock up. I do believe that there can be an economic, what I would call crisis that could be possible after this second conjunction between Saturn and Pluto. Some people think the second Great Depression is coming, and I'm not here to put fear, but you do have to have some common sense. How do I approach my life and my living with my family and using common sense? I do think it's prudent to stock up on dry goods. Look at your money situation and maybe pull out of the stock market. Learn a trade. You buy things like a sewing machine, learn how to sew, just be wise. And also a second part to this, I think that's important, is connect to your community. We've become a people, a generation that we're in our homes, and everything is through Facebook and social media. And I think it's important to kind of know your neighbors. Maybe if you belong to a church, really know your members, get involved in community, because if things get more intense, I think having that feeling of community and collaboration with others will also bring you a peace of mind. But we are in for more intensity this year, and you do have a choice how you're going to handle that. Do you go to the side of fear mongering and yell at people who don't wear masks, or are you grounding yourself? Right? Are you gardening? Are you listening to relaxing music? Or are you are you tied to the news? You have to watch the news 24 hours a day. So there is a choice. There is an individual choice how you're going to manage through this time.
So have you gotten any insight into like social unrest, or as we go into November? I know a lot of people are very concerned with the elections that are coming up.
Yes.
And how do the stars align with regard to what's happening socially in our communities?
Interesting question. Well, we do have a transit of Uranus. Uranus right now is going through Taurus. The Taurus energy represents our values as a community. Also, some people give it the financial sector, interestingly enough, and self-worth, the values, all of that, and agriculture, the food chains. And Uranus acts, its energy is electric and surprising events, and shakes things up, to transform. So as Uranus is going through Taurus this year, we're seeing shifts of the food chain. Our supermarket shelves, if you've noticed, you'll see a lot more empty shelves in certain things. Bitcoin is opening up more. People are talking more about Bitcoin. I think JP Morgan Chase got into the Bitcoin business when initially it wanted nothing to do with it. So that's going on. The political scene, my sense is that there will not be an election in November. Now, this is my intuition. This is not astrologically based, but it's just a feeling that I get. It's a very intense presidential election. I think I've never experienced that in my lifetime. I'm sure you haven't either. A lot of questions going on. And then in December, we have a very unique transit that's happening. It is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the air sign of Aquarius. So why this is important is that our ancestors, the ancient astrologers, started to notice certain cyclical events happening to society or empires with that Jupiter-Saturn cycle. So every 200 years, it shifts from one element, which was in Earth, so Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus, and now it's going to shift into Aquarius, which is a brand new chapter, and it is an air element. So what does Aquarius mean? Aquarius, on the very positive side, it's very humanitarian. It's using technology to advance our, us as a race. It is working together, collaboration, being social, community. And that's the beautiful side of Aquarius. It's using knowledge. It's the higher mind, using knowledge for the benefit of all of us, without hurting Mother Earth. Now, the dark side of Aquarius, I hate to say it, is George Orwellian. It's control. It's very individualistic, no connection between any of us, and technology used for nefarious purposes. So it can go either way. It's always a choice. We can try to predict the future, but every day that we are living through this, by our words, our actions, our thoughts, all of that is going to affect the outcome. So your choice is, where do I fit in with this, and how am I going to contribute to this, right? Am I going to be a positive person who's a realist? Because you can't also live in la la land, and think fairies are going to come down and solve this. but being grounded and a realist and saying, okay, what can I do that's positive within my community? Instead of sitting in an armchair on Facebook, bad mouthing people, jumping on people's posts, you're wasting that energy when you could be out there making a difference. So between the end of September through December, just imagine the intensity magnifying. There is room for innovation, for new businesses to come out of this pandemic, for new concepts of finance. I mean, there's always a positive, and right now I think we're all kind of looking at the dark side, but one needs to be just very intelligent and grounded and do things that will prepare you for whatever's coming through December.
Well, I know too that there's been a lot of strife between countries out there, such as China playing, cat and mouse with India, and we have the whole Hong Kong thing. I recently did a reading on the Philippine government and just all these different things and trade deals. Is there anything that you can see regarding maybe a war or some kind of confrontation on that level?
Well, Mars is the god of war, and this week it's making a transit that hits what I call another astrologer coined the phrase, she called it the COVID cluster, which happened in March, and I love that phrase, where it happened in the last degrees of Capricorn. So Mars in Aries right now, this week through probably next, is making what's called a square, a challenging energy to that angle. And it's going to come back a second time. So is it a civil war? Is it a war in trade? I mean, Jupiter's involved in these conjunctions, especially the one in December 21st. So that is a possibility. A battle of even ideologies. What ideology are we going to embrace? So yes, the world scene is going to be interesting for sure.
There's also 2 hurricanes that are getting ready to hit. Do you see anything in the short term with that? Well,
with the Mars transit happening this week through next week, I mean, that could be, a version of one of the effects that happens out of that. And it may not be the only one. I mean, we still have the transit still going on through the next week. So just kind of keep an eye out on things. You also might sense more from a personal level, more confrontation, whether it's at your job or in your marriage or your friends or whatever. Kind of take a deep breath, okay, and realize that you don't need to be involved in that energy, okay? And I think what's happening is, since all of us, everybody's in different levels, and some of us are dealing with that fear and anxiety, we're actually attracting these events into our lives. So it's calling for an awareness that, previous generations may have not had. And we're at a turning point where we have to step up and be adults. And again, the grounding and the common sense, which sometimes is not that common.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think most importantly, everybody is feeling all of these energies, and we all know that we're going through these very unsettling times right now. Can you tell us when this looks to calm down? If you were to forecast, is 2021 going to be any better?
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I think it's the next 10 years. It's going to be a lot of shifts. Somebody, I think it was in the paper, where they were saying how many of the wealthy are leaving the cities. Like I read one about New York City, where the higher left New York City, and they went and bought houses in Vermont or California and so forth. And so expect population shifts happening in cities, Chicago, Philadelphia, California. There's something going on with real estate. The riots are happening in these residential areas. Then the house values go down, and then some business owners are coming in and they're buying these residences left and right. So I sense that's also shifting. Our money system is shifting. There's rumors about, the dollar completely collapsing, or going to the gold standard, or forget the stock market. We're going to all jump in Bitcoin. That can also happen. Industries, AI also, and that makes people very nervous, AI, but it's going to get more involved in business, in our jobs, in our work. So it is important to kind of position yourself, learn new skills, keep yourself learning, whether you're in IT, whether you're in the medical field, whether you're a teacher. Make sure you're learning other skills, because there is going to be an adaptation process. But yeah, the next 10 years is going to be an intense roller coaster ride. And by intense, it does not have to be, the zombie apocalypse. But it is, just having that awareness that you have to prepare and position yourself in a good place.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom. Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, as a collective, we are creating our reality. Again, the thoughts, the words, what we are inhaling through the television every day. Are you watching things that are positive and motivational? Or are you watching, again, the fear-mongering things that are on TV? And it's not just the news, it could be movies and so forth. So what I say to you, my brothers and sisters, is to connect to the divine source. And that means different things to different people. But remember that you have an amazing essence within you, and that you are empowered and you can make a difference. And I believe the light always wins over the dark. That is my belief. And those are my words.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Aya, for joining us today. Again, her link is ayarising.com. I will put a link in the description box below. And I'm Lynn with Psychic Focus at psychicfocus.blogspot.com. Thank you. Bye.